Welcome everybody. Thanks for coming out with us and spending your Thursday evening with us. So I'm really excited about tonight, the nutritional informational part. I love that we do these webinars and these seminars and getting this information and trying to better our T3 family. So another thing I'm super excited about is this new partnership with Nutrition with Brooke and with Brooke here. As an athlete or just as a person, you know that nutrition is gigantic when it comes to performance. I think it's a big deal, but it's easily overlooked. It's one of the few parts of performance that really people take for granted. Brooke, I think you've used this example with me too, is the gas in your car. So again, when you go to the gas station, you can fill up with that 87 normal gas, right? Your car is still going to function. It's still going to drive. You're still going to get you where you want to go. But if you fill up with that 97 high octane gas, your engine's going to be so much cleaner. You're going to ride so much better. You're going to be so much faster, and the engine's going to perform for so much longer. And I think that's what we're talking about here tonight, is that proper nutrition. No matter what, as you're an athlete, whatever level you're trying to reach, you're really splitting hairs as to who's good and who's performing well. And these pieces that you put together in this puzzle really boost your performance to the next level. Because if you're going from, junior high to college, junior high to high school to college to pro, again, it's a small little piece that can make a big difference. So I think this, again, is easily overlooked, but when you put this nutritional piece in there, it really goes a long way for performance. So I'll stop rambling a little bit and introduce Brooke and have her take it away.
All right, thank you, Eric. Thanks for being here tonight, you guys. I'm really excited, as Eric said, to really bring this nutrition piece of the puzzle, because you'll hear me say it a lot throughout the presentation, is that it's just one piece of the puzzle, but just as Eric said, it's often the most overlooked or taken for granted piece of it. So excited to be here, and thank you for tuning in. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll jump right in. Okay, here we go. So we are here tonight talking about recovery nutrition, and we're going to kind of cover a wide spectrum, everything from day-to-day workouts and how to recover from those and wake up and do it again. We'll talk about multi-event competitions like a track meet or a tournament or whatever it may be. And then we'll end by talking about injury recovery and how nutrition can play a role in not only injury prevention, but also what we can do to really optimize your recovery. So we'll cover a lot. And I know we have athletes and coaches and parents and all different people on the call. So hopefully you can take all bits of this and apply it to your own schedule, your own sport, etc. If you have any questions during this, pop them in the chat box. Eric's going to kind of help me keep an eye on that, but feel free to put them in the chat box, or we will have a Q&A at the end. So here we go. Okay, so first, once again, just reiterating what Eric and I have both now said, is that these two, this quote and this visual really kind of talks about my belief when it comes to nutrition, and that I acknowledge that it's a piece of it, but I think it's a bigger piece than a lot of people think of. It's not just like what you eat, it's hydration, it's supplements, it's are you getting the right ratios, are you getting the right timing, are you recovering properly? So that image on the right, I think, just does a really great job of reminding us that there is so much more to performance than just the games or the practices, which are really important and obviously a huge piece of it, but nutrition can really help support that. And then the quote on the left, I did not come up with it, and I do not know who did, so if you do, let me know. But it's one that I've heard many times. It's, you can't out train a poor diet. And I think that speaks volumes, because it's really easy to think I'm getting all my work done in the weight room, or I'm getting all my work down in the cardio or whatever it may be. But if you're not fueling yourself properly, you're really limiting yourself. You're really not reaching your full potential, and you can only go so far with it. So nutrition is there as a support. It's there as a way to get you to that next level. And then recovery is obviously what we're going to focus on right now. So what is recovery? Why do we care about it, and why should you make it a part of your routine? So recovery, not just in nutrition, but as a full picture, is an element that should be part of your training cycle. Just as you get up and warm up and stretch and do your actual workout, the recovery should be taken really just as seriously, which often it's not, because we're tired, we want to get home, go to sleep, or go to the next thing on our day. So taking some time to recover is key. Obviously, from a nutritional standpoint, we want to refuel, rehydrate, and replace anything that we either lost during our exercise or that we consumed. We also want to get our body temperature back to normal and replace or get our cardio function back to normal. And then we also want to repair those tissues. So exercise is habitually something that we love, and it gives us, that exercise high, but it really tears our body down, right? It kind of rips our muscles so we can make them bigger, but it does cause some damage so that we can, move forward. So nutrition is going to be just a part of it, but it's a big part of it. If that doesn't convince you enough, here's a couple of great examples of people that take nutrition seriously. And just as Eric alluded to, if you look at any of the professional athletes, any of the collegiate athletes that are really successful, they give a ton of credit to recovery. So you have Allison Felix from the U.S. Track and field team, multiple gold medalist in the Olympics. You have Tom Brady, of course, 7-time Super Bowl champion, who you've probably heard about his crazy diets, which, not saying you all have to do the TB12 diet, but he has said that he recovers the fastest, and he attributes his nutrition to being able to play for so many years. You have Alex Morgan, the U.S. Women's National Team, a co-captain. She talks about recovery being key. And then recently, I don't know if any of you know the Iron Cowboy. I'm obsessed with him. He is doing 100 Iron triathlons, so like Ironmans, in 100 days, which is absurd. And his caption says it perfectly. Recovery is a huge part of his process. And you see him there, obviously stretching, getting massaged down, but he's fueling. He has to obviously fuel a lot. He goes to the extreme of he has to weigh himself every day to make sure he's actually getting enough in. So these are just a couple of examples. You have LeBron James, you have Serena Williams. All professional athletes, all the really successful athletes take recovery seriously. Okay, enough of the why, time to get into what we're at, the science behind it. So when we exercise, we create free radicals. We also get exposed to free radicals from the environment, from UV light, from bacteria and viruses. But when we exercise, we create free radicals. Now, free radicals, a fellow dietitian actually put it in a really good way. She said that free radicals are kind of like a 5-year-old kid, that if you pay attention to them and interact with them and keep an eye on them, they behave for the most part, and they kind of keep you in check. But if you turn your back for just a minute or you get overwhelmed, it can cause absolute craziness. And that's kind of how free radicals work. We actually need a balance of free radicals because they actually support our immune system and support our muscular function. But when we get an imbalance or a high influx or too much of one, that's when the damage starts to occur. We start to see damage to the cells, damage to our muscular function, quicker fatigue, weakness, all that bad stuff that we want to eliminate and minimize when it comes to recovery. So exercise creates free radicals, but we want to find that fine balance of enough, but not too much. And that's where nutrition and recovery comes into play. So obviously, I completely acknowledge that nutrition is just a piece of it. So at the bottom here, you'll see all the different modalities when it comes to recovery. You have icing and cryotherapy and those leg sleeves that you wear and stretching, and all of that's really, really important. Obviously, what we're going to talk about tonight are going to be hydration, nutrition, and we're going to touch on sleep just briefly because it actually is all connected. Okay, so getting into the food aspect of it. The first is antioxidants. So antioxidants are what keep those free radicals in check. It's what fights off and really helps keep that balance in our bodies, our antioxidants. Your body produces antioxidants, but then of course they are found in tons of different foods as well as supplements. In terms of sources of antioxidants, actually some really new recent research has just emerged that it does matter where you're getting your antioxidants from, because it has been found that when we take high dose antioxidants, most people take a lot of vitamin C or vitamin E, because it's always thought that the higher your antioxidant levels, the quicker you can recover and the stronger your immune system. And while that thinking is not inaccurate, the source and the where we're getting those antioxidants from is being found to matter. So actually taking high dose antioxidant supplements has been caused to actually do more harm than good. So it's really encouraged that unless you have a really specific case or a certain situation where you need to take a supplement for it, that getting your antioxidants from fruits and vegetables, and we'll go over some more sources in the next couple of slides, is really, really beneficial, because there has been no side effects or no negative effects by taking in high amounts of those antioxidants versus the artificial. So hopefully that makes sense. Once again, if you take emergency or something every now and then, totally okay. It's more like everyday high dose antioxidants that we want to be wary of here. Okay, so then here are just some foods to fight inflammation. Now, you'll probably, just by looking at the photos, you'll notice that these are probably all foods that when you think of a healthy diet would probably make up part of a healthy diet. And that's really actually a great observation, because it's not, while recovery nutrition, like after workout nutrition, is really important, what's also important is how you're eating the rest of the day. Like it's not about just what you're doing afterwards. That's a huge piece of it. But you'll see that it's really about your overall diet throughout the day that also contributes to your recovery and how quickly and efficiently you do that. But back to these specific foods, a couple things to highlight. Vegetables, huge in antioxidants, huge in vitamin A and C, good flavonoids, good carotenoids. Essentially, they're all really good for anti-inflammatory properties. Berries, same thing, really high in antioxidants, high in vitamin C. The more variety and color you could have on your plate, whether it's from fruits or vegetables or even citrus, the more color you can have on your plate is better. It's why you're probably always hearing like, eat the rainbow, because each different color corresponds to like a different antioxidant, a different micronutrient. So we want a lot of variety on our plate. Furthermore, the more dense in color a food is, the more of like that good stuff is in there. It's kind of an easy way to think about it. The best example I can think of is like an iceberg lettuce compared to a spinach. Spinach is obviously like a dark green in color. Iceberg is going to be light and white. Iceberg still has some nutrients, but spinach has so much more in it. So that's also kind of a good way to find little ways to make some substitutions that you might get a little bit more bang for your buck. Egg yolks. Actually, this is probably surprises a lot of people. Egg yolks are often avoided because people think that's where like all the bad stuff is and they only want the protein or the less calories in the egg white. But egg yolks are actually where a lot of your vitamins, antioxidants, and a lot of your minerals are found. So not saying you have to add into all of your eggs, but including egg yolks in your meals is a great way to boost those anti-inflammatory properties that we're looking for. Then we move into a citrus, which once again, really high in vitamin C. We know that. Nuts and seeds, really high in fiber. Fiber is also plays a really key role when it comes to anti-inflammatory properties. So seeds are really great for that. They also have antioxidants in them. Move on to fatty fish. This is your salmon, mackerel, herring, but salmon's probably the most common one. These are going to be high in omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids are anti-inflammatory. They support anti-inflammatory properties, so we really want these. You go into spices, especially like turmeric, ginger, cinnamon, tend to have higher anti-inflammatory properties, but all spices are actually really good just to bring a couple different flavors to the table. Avocados, healthy fats, whole grains, lots of fiber. So these are just some of the anti-inflammatory foods, but you'll notice all good in color, all natural sources, all really nutrient dense. On the contrary, these are pro-inflammatory foods. So these are the foods that will cause more inflammation and cause more harm than they will to help you. Now, before I go any farther, I definitely want to, I am a huge proponent of balance. So am I saying never eat like your favorite cheeseburger or never have French fries? Absolutely not. I love French fries and mac and cheese are my two favorites, so I get it. But there is a time and a place for these. Right after a hard workout, right after a hard session, you're not doing your body any favors if you're limited, if you're only eating this type of food. Now, once again, there's always an asterisk, right? If this is all you have access to, if the only thing you're by after a game is a McDonald's, it's better to get something in your system than nothing. Well, we can talk about some better choices if that is the case for you. So just being aware of this and trying to include these sparingly, find a balance. I kind of like to do an 80-20. So 80% of the time you are staying really nutritious, really natural sources, really good foods. And 20% of the time kind of sprinkled in, you have your treats, your favorite foods, or your dinner out, totally fine, not gonna be the end of the world. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so now let's take kind of some of those foods, and we know what foods are gonna help us recover, and put it into when you should eat them. So as I mentioned before, what you're eating after your workout is really important, but we're only gonna help ourselves if what we're eating throughout the day is really balanced too. But if we are honing in on that recovery window, so right after your lift or your practice or your game, your competition, what should you be fueling with? I kind of want you to actually ignore the two different time frames, because on the image it has a 15 to 60 minute time frame and then a 3 to 4 hour time frame. The easiest way to think about it is the quicker you can get some sort of fuel in your body, the quicker it can start to recover and replenish. Simple as that. This example does a great job. All of the examples that you see on here is really great because it has a good quality protein with a good source of carbohydrate. So let's go from left to right. One of the first most common ones is chocolate milk, and we'll talk about it more in the next couple of slides, but chocolate milk really does check all the boxes. It's affordable, there's even shelf-stable options, but it has good protein, good carbohydrates because it has sugar in it, and then you pair that with some almonds or some trail mix, and you have a good, quick, easy, affordable snack. You have Greek yogurt with fruit and granola or some nuts on top. Greek yogurt has about twice as much protein as a regular yogurt, so it's a great way to get some added protein in there. And once again, really easy to just kind of throw it in your bag or grab it after when you get home. For bigger meals, if you have a better appetite after a training session, you can go for a bigger meal. So it could be eggs and toast and maybe like a chicken sausage or a turkey sausage. It could be a stir fry, add some brown rice in there, lots of vegetables and a lean protein, or it could be a burrito bowl. You can go to Chipotle and actually get a decent recovery meal as long as you make some better choices. So it's really, doesn't have to be fancy, but we're looking for good source of protein, good source of whole grain, and then flavor sprinkled in there. We'll talk about some more examples next. So this is like after, like at the end of the day, like when you're done with your training, this is what you would do. Now, if you are somebody who has like a practice followed by a training session, like a lifting session, or if you're at a tournament or you're at a track meet maybe, and you have multiple events that are spaced out throughout the day, how do you recover in between all of those? And that's where it's a little bit different than when you're recovering like as your last recovery of the day. So when you are in between your events, our main focus is going to be carbohydrates, because regardless of what sport you play, carbohydrates is going to be the biggest contributor of energy in different ratios, of course, but carbohydrates are going to be your source of energy. So when it comes to fueling between those events, we're looking for really simple carbohydrates. We're talking fruit, applesauce, PB&J, a really simple granola bar, like one of like, even just like a basic chewy bar is fine here because we want something really quick and easy to digest and turn into energy and sugar. It can be a sports drink. It could be a Gatorade. It could be energy chews, whether it's a Cliff Bar energy chew or a Scratch Labs energy chew. In between multiple events, you have to eat something, and it has to be just a really simple carbohydrate. And sorry, I missed a point here. When it's not only in between those exercises or those events, but if your sport, so like volleyball, basketball, soccer, there's any sort of like halftime or timeouts or any opportunity to actually fuel a little bit during those events, when you know you have multiple events that day, fueling during your events will once again only help you recover, make your recovery be easier and more efficient. So once again, it's kind of a two-way street, you know, talking to your coach. Is it okay if you have some fuel? What works for you? It takes a little bit of experimenting. But if you're able to fuel during some of those competitions so that you can recover quicker, that's also a really good habit to get into. This is just a couple of my go-tos, like personal go-tos when it comes to recovery nutrition. Like if I'm not able to go home right away, or I can't, you know, pack like a nice, something more fresh, here are some products that I think still check all the boxes that are also convenient. So obviously on the left, you have fruit, dried or fresh. So like dried apricots are one of my favorites. Bananas last really well, or clementines. Once again, I throw in my bag and they last pretty much all day. These are going to be great for multiple workouts, like in between multiple workouts. When I'm going from my run to T3 to work out, I have one of these in my car as I'm driving there. Below that is the Stinger waffle. Once again, that's all carbohydrate. So that's a great option for multiple event in between competitions, really easily digestible. They have different flavors and they're delicious. Tastes like a Stroop waffle if you ever had one of those. And the rest of those examples would be great options for more kind of substantial recovery snacks to initiate the recovery process. So the split nutrition is one of my favorite. Kevin Love also uses it if you follow him. But it's essentially an adult peanut butter and jelly packet. So it's kind of like an energy gel, but it tastes way better, and it's natural food and natural sources of protein and carbohydrates. They have different flavors. They have almond butter, peanut butter, cashew butter. Great option to explore there. Macro bars, my personal favorite when it comes to a protein bar. This would be a great piece of a recovery. Should never be like a full meal, but it can be a piece of it. Balance breaks are cheese with dried fruit and nuts. Once again, some good protein, some good carbohydrates, not enough for your full recovery, but it will initiate it. Perfect bars, they have to be refrigerated, but I've taken them for a whole day and they're fine. So you'll be fine if you want to use that. And then Kodiak Cakes has actually come out with like little to-go Kodiak cups. All you do is add water and pop it in the microwave. So if you work out and then head to work, maybe that's something you can use once you get to work. So lots of different options to explore. There are a ton more products out there. If you have any other ideas or you want some more ideas, definitely reach out to me. I'm happy to help you navigate that world because it can be definitely overwhelming.
And Brooke, too, I love that you brought up the fueling between games. I can't tell you how many of our athletes come right from practice right to work out. You know, they have to sit down, have to get lightheaded, whatever it might be, because they haven't eaten anything probably since lunch. You know, they didn't eat anything in between, or like you said, have a long track meet, have a long, 2, 3, 4 volleyball matches in a day. I feel like that sums up like 80% of our athletes, and not of a lot of them do take steps to fuel between, and it makes such a big difference. And I too, I love those honey stinger waffle things. They're delicious.
So
yeah, they're
well,
but
to
yeah,
be completely
that's
honest,
awesome. You brought. What's that?
No, go ahead. You go.
Oh, no. I just love that you brought it up and how important it is to fuel in between. Because again, you still need to perform. You still need to. It's still a game. You still need to, to compete and operate at a high level. So that's huge. I can't tell you how many athletes have asked us those questions throughout our time.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, to be completely honest, like a true story, and obviously Eric was there because he's who I train with. But one of my first times training at T3, I went for a run that morning, and then I went over to for my second session maybe, and we got maybe halfway through, and I was like, Eric, I am seeing stars. Like I got to go sit down, and it's because I didn't feel like I usually have that snack between running and coming to the gym, and I didn't have it, and that's exactly why I bombed. So. Yeah, any of you athletes that are listening or coaches or parents, encourage them to have something. It doesn't have to be big, but having something is going to be huge there for sure. Okay, this is the response I get a lot when I tell people you have to eat even between workouts or between sessions. You have to fuel. Well, I get, okay, that's great, but like I don't have an appetite or I don't feel hungry. That's normal because exercises causes us to have our appetite to be suppressed. So you're not crazy. But your body can be trained and it can adapt. So you might not have an appetite now, but if we start giving it a little bit of fuel and work on it, it will start to be able to digest it better and it will become just a part of your routine. So if this applies to you, a couple things to try here. The first is go for a liquid. So whether it's in between, you can have a sports drink. You can have orange juice that has carbohydrates in it. That's sugar in there. So you can have something liquid, something cold. Smoothies are a great option, whether it's before or after. Those are always great. You can kind of load those up with all sorts of goodness. Greek yogurt or an applesauce, which is once again cold, kind of liquidy, and can be eaten really easily. Or something really small in size. So like energy bites. People probably use recipes all over the web for energy bites that you can make really like high in energy and high in nutrients, but in just a couple little bites. So trying to find some smaller volume items that give you some good bang for your buck as well. Once again, something here is better than nothing. So if you're limited by something out of a vending machine on your way out the door to a training session, at least grab something. Grab a Rice Krispie treat. Is it the best? No, but at least it's carbohydrates, it's simple, it's affordable, and you can break it down really easily. So really trying to find, there's really not an excuse to not have fuel. So try to plan ahead and try to make the best of what you have access to. Okay, so we've talked a lot about food, like how to recover with food and how to, recover between things with food. I don't want to skip over the fact that hydration still plays a role here. It's really easy, especially when we get busy, especially when, we get intense in our training, we forget to drink water, or you get intense in practice and, coaches forget to give you a water break. It does happen to all of us, but hydration is really, really, really important. And it's really hard to recover properly if your hydration is not on par. It's even harder to recover if you're trying to make up your hydration in a short period of time. So a couple of things to keep in mind here. A good starting point when it comes to a common question I get is, okay, how much water should I be drinking? It's going to be, or fluid, not just water, fluid, should you be drinking? It's going to really depend on, sweat rate, how often you're working out, what your environment's like. So it's very individualized, but a good starting point is to take your body weight in pounds, divide it by 2, and it's going to be in ounces. I actually saw you guys post that on somewhere, and on your TV in the gym. So you guys are probably already know this, but that's right. That's accurate. That's a good starting point. Once again, that will fluctuate based on your individual needs, but that's kind of an easy answer to give you. In terms of during exercise, really trying to get some sort of hydration every 20 minutes or so. 30 minutes is probably fine too, but trying to do it frequently so that A, you don't feel like you have to chug water when you are given a water break, because that will cause all sorts of tummy like sloshing around, which we don't want to have. But it'll also kind of keep you on par in terms of meeting your needs and limiting your losses during exercise. In terms of recovery hydration and post-exercise hydration, essentially you want to replace what you lost. The only way to know exactly what you lost is to weigh yourself before and after, which if you want to do that, that's totally an option. For every pound that you have lost during exercise, you need to drink 16 to 24 ounces of fluid to replenish that, which is a lot, especially if, wrestlers or football where you're outside, in pads, in a really hot environment, you tend to lose a lot of water weight. It's really important that you replenish that. The best way to test to see where your status is the urine test. It's gross, but it's the only way we can really test without like doing fancy tests. I'll show you a picture in a second of some of what that looks like. But here are a couple of my favorite go-to hydration mixes. Obviously Gatorade is probably the most common one out there. You can always water it down if you don't feel like you need the full strength Gatorade. It's a good way to make it last a little bit longer. A personal favorite is Scratch Labs, SKRATCH. They have a great line of products. They have energy chews, all sorts of things. They have really good flavors in their hydration mix, and it's all from really good ingredients. Noon is great. They're just tablets you put into your water. And then if you're a coconut water fan, I am not, but Numa is a great brand and they have really great ingredients, but it is a coconut water base. So just be warned there. This is obviously, many of you have probably seen it in locker rooms or all over the place. This is the hydration status that you can kind of use when we say the urine test. It's this. We want things to be above number 4. Anything else, it's you're already dehydrated. It's really important that you start to try to make up for it. So this is a great indicator. Talk to your athletic trainer, talk to maybe your team dietitian if you have one, or talk to me if you have questions about this or what you need to do to recover from something like this. Okay, talking about hydration, I know we touched on it earlier, but chocolate milk. It really is a great recovery drink because not only does it have carbs and protein, but it is hydrating as well. So you kind of check all those boxes, which is great. Also, like I said, no matter if you have an appetite or not, chocolate milk pretty much always sounds good, at least to me. So it's a good option to have. We also really like the ratio of carbohydrates to protein here. As I mentioned in that one slide with all the different images of the different meals, all of them had about a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio when it comes to carbohydrates to protein. This is the ideal ratio in terms of meeting your needs. So chocolate milk really is a good starting point. Next is tart cherry juice. I'm guessing many of you have maybe heard of this. It's become a really popular trend, not even a trend. It's just the research has started to really come out. A lot of colleges have started picking it up. And so it's definitely a newer trend. Not a huge surprise if we go back to thinking of like, okay, what are anti-inflammatory foods? Okay, fruits, cherries are really high in antioxidants and flavonoids and polyphenols and all that good stuff. So it's not a huge surprise that tart cherry juice supports recovery, but I don't think I think we all underestimated just how much it actually did support our recovery. So for those of you that don't know, tart cherry juice, which is different than there is such a thing as tart cherry juice versus like regular cherry juice. Tart cherry juice is found to reduce levels of pain and improve recovery when consumed post-exercise. Now, there is a lot of research that still needs to be done in terms of the optimal time for taking in tart cherry juice. So, sorry, this is in my way. So it's ideal to take tart cherry juice when we're not like in the building or adaptation phase. So when you're like in your preseason and you're building muscle and building strength and building endurance, that's not when we want to take tart cherry juice. We want to take tart cherry juice when recovery is really the main goal here. So that's after like a really hard game. That's when you're in season and it's just you have to recover so you can wake up the next day and go and practice again. It's also, this is something like when you have a multiple day event, when you're just trying to get through the day, that's when it's appropriate to have it right after right after training. But for the most part, we want to have it taken in times when we're not trying to build or adapt, we're just recovering. And we also want to take it typically just about an hour before bed, not only because it helps with the recovery, but it also promotes really good sleep. So something to think about there. A really great brand to start if you're interested in this, check out Cherry Bundy. They're actually the one that put this picture up that workouts don't work without recovery. So they're really well research based, really good product. A lot of colleges utilize them. So that's a good starting point. But if you want to learn more about this, or if you want to like wonder if Tart cherry juice is a good option for you, reach out to me, just because it is really dependent on like where you're at training phase wise, what your other intake throughout the day looks like. So reach out to me or talk to another dietitian. We can kind of help you navigate this world, because it is still evolving and growing, but also it's exciting. It's another product that I think will actually really help improve recovery and improve performance. Okay, we're on our last section. Is there any questions about any of that so far? Eric, is there anything that I need to go back over based on questions that you're seeing?
No, that's awesome. I think in the Tart cherry juice, it's really hard to say.
No.
And I've heard it mentioned, and I think more along the lines of endurance athletes. I've heard it discussed about, and I never really understood what it was, or like why and in what context it's important. So that's awesome. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
Yeah, and it's also it's endurance and strength too. So all you strength people, it's definitely it's research supports both. So that's exciting. Okay, so our last section is focusing in on injuries. So 90% of student athletes, this is a college number, but any athlete can say they've had some sort of sports-related injury. Now, while nutrition can't eliminate the risk of injury, it can definitely minimize your risk and really help support your recovery when you do get injured. On the contrary, poor nutrition will definitely impair your recovery and lengthen your time when it comes to return to play. So really focusing on nutrition is really helpful when you are recovering from an injury. And this is easier said than done. You know, I think it's hard because when you're injured, especially like a significant injury, it's easy to kind of be like, well, I'm done. Like my season's over. I tore my ACL or I broke a bone. Like I'm done. It's easy to check out. I'm here to tell you that it's actually like, it's important that you stay checked in. And this is a way to do it. You can really work on your nutrition so that you can come back as quickly as possible and as strong as possible so that you can hit the ground running and get back to training as soon as possible. So a couple of goals when it comes to nutrition intervention in the roles of injury recovery. The first is we really want to support muscle protein synthesis, because for almost every single injury, your protein needs are going to go through the roof, which we'll talk about next. We want to maintain muscle mass. We want to maintain our energy balance, and we want to minimize body fat accrual. I really want to emphasize the word minimize, because I think a lot of people get really nervous that when they get injured, your body composition is going to change because you're not exercising or working out the way you were. That's very normal. So we're not going to eliminate any sort of those changes, but we are going to minimize them, and we're really going to try to find the best balance so that you're in a really good spot moving forward. So let's talk about what happens when we get injured. So even though you're injured, even though you're out from your current activity or training, your metabolic rate actually is going to increase to support this healing process. The amount that it increases and all that is obviously really based on the severity of the injury, but it will increase because your body needs adequate energy to heal itself. And this is a really basic equation for how we have fancy equations when we talk about your actual RMR and your needs and everything. But here's the basis of it. We take your RMR, we multiply it by a stress factor and an activity level. So when you're injured, even though your activity level will go to a 1 because you're probably not exercising normally, your stress factor can go anywhere from a 1.2 to a 1.5, depending on, maybe even higher, depending on the severity of your injury. So even though your activity factor is going down, stress factor is going up. So your overall metabolic needs stay relatively similar. They are going to be less than what you were when you were fully healthy and active, but they are still going to be elevated compared to the normal general population. So how does that affect our macronutrients? So our carbohydrate needs, This is where we're going to see actually the biggest reduction, because carbohydrates, as I mentioned earlier, are our main source of energy. So when we stop our activity, our energy output decreases, so our carbohydrate intake needs to reduce just slightly. It's important that we still have adequate carbohydrates because we still have to use energy to recover. So we're going to be in about a 3 to 5 grams per kilogram of body weight range. Once again, this will completely vary based on who you are, what your injury is, how long you're out, etc. That's kind of a good range. Whereas on most athletes, depending on the sport, your baseline is 5. So we're definitely taking you under your normal baseline, but that's okay because your activity is reducing. Especially when you're injured, we really want to emphasize the complex carbohydrates. So your whole grains, your oatmeal, your brown rice, your whole grain breads, just because those simple carbohydrates aren't going to be as filling, they're going to have less fiber. So that can contribute to over consuming and leading to those unwanted drastic changes in body composition. So whole grains is really going to be helpful here. Good fiber, and you'll be fine. And then, as I said here, it will, as you get back to return to play, as you start to go to physical therapy, as you start to be able to do certain drills, your carbohydrates will start to increase again until you're back to normal needs. Okay, next is protein. So as I mentioned, your needs are going to increase here to support recovery, because protein is what's going to help stimulate this tissue development. So whatever is really injured, it's going to involve some sort of tissue. It has to be regenerated. When it comes to protein, we need all different. So there's amino acids. There's 20 amino acids. We need all of them. Some really key ones is going to be leucine. So leucine is especially important when it comes to recovery because it is primarily responsible for muscle protein synthesis. I even hesitate to put this in there because often when I say you need leucine, people then like only focus on leucine and they're like, I need to supplement with leucine, I need to get all these BCAAs in. And that's not necessarily the case. If you get a variety of protein sources in, you're going to get plenty of leucine in. It's actually more important to get a variety of protein in because research has supported that it's more effective to have leucine as a part of it versus just leucine. So this is a really complicated way of saying balance in protein, different protein sources is the best approach. For anyone with a really any injury, unless it's like a really, really minor injury, a baseline is going to be about 1.6 grams per kilogram per day, which is high. That's right about where the lower range is when you're a healthy athlete. So that number is not really changing a whole lot. It actually becomes even more important here that we're meeting our protein needs. Plus, meeting our protein needs will also ensure that we're not losing any sort of, or minimizing what we're losing in muscle mass. We want to make sure that we're maintaining all that muscle that you worked really hard to gain. Okay, and then last is going to be fats. You still need fats even when you're injured. Once again, people sometimes think that they had to like cut everything out because they're not having energy output. Not the case. When we're injured, we just want to emphasize even more so that we're getting those unsaturated fatty acids to support anti-inflammatory properties, as well as minimize the intake of saturated fats and the ones that are going to support inflammation. So once again, this is going to kind of make up the rest of your diet after you meet your protein and carbohydrate needs, but you definitely still need them. Okay, last few bits here, we're going to talk about some specific injuries and some of the more common injuries and some nutrients to kind of focus on when you have these injuries, and then we'll take some questions. So first is concussions, unfortunately a common thing. I know I had my fair share when I played in college. So a couple nutrients to focus on. Once again, before we even start this, all nutrition is still important. So it's not like you only need to eat these 4 nutrients. It's everything. These are just some that you want to really make sure you include in your diet. The first would be omega-3 fatty acids because of the anti-inflammatory properties. There's a theme here, people. The next is creatine, which your body can create. You don't have to supplement with it, but your body can create it from other protein sources. So just making sure that you meet those protein needs because that's a huge energy reserve for the brain, which you want to take care of when we're concussed. You want to make sure you're getting enough zinc in, which is in a lot of your dark leafy green vegetables. So once again, eat your vegetables. This is huge when it comes to nerve transmission and function, which obviously is a huge part of the brain. And then antioxidants. Once again, anti-inflammatory properties. When we have a concussion, you probably hear the word like your brain swelling. It really is. So we want to try to minimize that and support that in terms of decreasing in swelling and decreasing inflammation as much as possible. So when you think about it, it makes sense. It's very simplistic, but often it gets overlooked, and it's easy to think, I can't do anything to help my brain. I'm going to go eat whatever I want. When really you can actually support how you recover. The next is bone and joint injuries. So a broken bone, a broken clavicle, or even when you like hurt a tendon in your knee, or even really anywhere in your body, the joint's going to become unstable, right? So we want to do what we can to give some support and some strength back to that. So the first is going to be calcium. This is probably the most obvious one. It's a huge component of the bone matrix. It's what gives strength and structure to bones. So we want to make sure we have adequate calcium. If you don't have adequate calcium, your bones do become more brittle and they become more prone to injury. So calcium is actually really, really huge in not only injury recovery, but also prevention, making sure you're getting enough calcium in. Vitamin D is really critical for calcium absorption. So you want to help that process out as much as possible. And then magnesium and zinc, if we don't have enough of those, that also inhibits bone healing. So we want to make sure that we have enough of all of these wonderful micronutrients. Here are some sources here. Calcium, obviously, dairy and dairy products, but there are also non-dairy sources. I think this is a common misunderstanding that if you don't eat animal products or don't drink milk or dairy products, you can't meet your calcium needs, and you can. Chia seeds, dark leafy green vegetables, almonds, edamame, tofu, tempeh, and dried figs are actually all really great sources of calcium. Vitamin D, not a ton of food options here. Salmon, mushroom, sardines, canned salmon has high vitamin D, as well as fortified juice and milk. The best source is sunlight, but obviously we're kind of limited here in Ohio. So this is a common supplement. A lot of you might be on vitamin D or know somebody that's on vitamin D. So even though it's common, it still is really important that you get a blood test to determine your vitamin D status, because it can become detrimental if you over supplement. So depending on your levels, that will depend on how you properly supplement. And then magnesium, almonds, cashews, black beans, edamame, all sorts of fruits and vegetables again, plus some nuts and seeds. Once again, there's a theme here. Well-balanced diet, good plant-based sources of food is really only going to support you. And the last one, once again, maybe the most common, unfortunately, would be soft tissue injuries. So like an ACL tear, torn labrum, something like that. These obviously are going to provide structure and stability to our joints. And so when those are wonky, we want to get those back and healing as quickly as possible. A couple of our key nutrients here are leucine, once again, stimulates that muscle protein synthesis, vitamin C, and collagen. Vitamin C is really important because it helps the synthesis and the absorption of collagen. So they kind of work like in a symbiotic relationship. So our leucine, chicken, beef, fish, pork, egg, dairy. Our collagen, this also, once again, is probably one of the most commonly supplemented nutrients that I see in my line of work. Everyone's on the Vital Protein collagen, which is a great source of collagen, but you can definitely support your body's production of collagen by eating foods that are high in copper, high in vitamin C, and high in zinc, which are the foods you see listed there. Citrus, berries, peppers, dark leafy green vegetables, chickpeas, broccoli, and tomatoes. Those are just a couple of them. Lots of other foods have good vitamin C, good zinc, etc. As I mentioned, this is a commonly supplemented one. If you are prone to soft tissue injuries, if you've had like an Achilles tear, if you're in a sport with lots of like quick jumping, change of direction, this might not be a terrible idea in terms of supplementing. I would definitely encourage you to reach out to me or talk to a sports dietitian to make sure that it is needed in your diet. But then for any supplement of anything I've talked about all day, all night, is just make sure it's a third-party tested supplement. Even if you're not a college athlete, if you're a coach of a high school team or an adolescent athlete, even though no supplements under 18 typically, we want to make sure it's a third-party tested supplement because that ensures high quality. It ensures that the ingredients are from a good source. It also it does test for banned substances. So if it's a third-party tested and approved supplement, it takes any of that worry and concern really out of the equation. So I should have put a picture of what that looks like, but one of the best, the gold standard is NSF certified. It's a blue and orange little label, and I wish I had one up here. but it will say NSF certified. That means it's a third-party tested supplement. So Vital Proteins actually is a third-party tested supplement. So if you are taking collagen and you're taking Vital Proteins, you're good to go. And the last thing before we take questions is sleep. I told you I'd touch on it, so here we are. I'm not a sleep scientist, but I have seen a sleep scientist and they are awesome. So if you want to, check them out. But the gold standard is 7 to 9 hours. Yes, even for college athletes. Once again, I've been there. I know it's hard, but it is doable. And if it's not doable, definitely utilize napping. 30-minute nap is kind of what they tell you to limit yourself to, which is hard, but it's what they say. Sleep is really, really, really important, not only for your body to recover, but also just to grow stronger and to repair the damage that it went through that day. In terms of how it relates to nutrition, when we're sleep deprived, it throws our hormones all out of whack. It really affects our appetite regulating hormones. So our ghrelin, our leptin, which tell us when we're hungry, when we're full, gets thrown all out of whack. And that's when you start to eat nonstop or not eat enough because your body can't figure out what it actually needs or what it actually wants. So we really want to keep those in check so that we can really get in touch with our hunger cues. Inadequate sleep also can throw your glucose off, so your blood sugar levels. So you might have like more peaks, more valleys. You might feel like you hit a wall earlier in the day, once again, because we're not sleeping enough. So it is all connected. One thing's out of whack, the other thing tends to be out of whack. So trying our best to keep things in sync. And that's all I have to say about sleep. We've made it to the end. What questions? What else can I answer?
I think one fantastic thing that I'm glad you brought up a couple times, and it seems like it's easy. It seems like it should be like just common knowledge, but like or something you think about regularly is that everything's tied together. You know, like you said, if you're not sleeping the best, if you're not hydrating the most, if you're not, getting adequate nutrition, something's going to be off. And then one of those three are going to be out of whack. And then when they're all out three, your performance goes way, way down. So I think that's something huge that, to be reminded of, to me, goes a long, long way.
Cool.
We did have one, I thought, really good question. When it comes to like pre and post nutrition, as well as the halftime nutrition in between competitions, if someone had a peanut and or tree nut allergy, would there be, or do you recommend any good alternatives to some of the things we spoke about tonight?
Tree, yeah. Sun butter is like a sunflower. If they can do sunflower seeds, that's kind of like the next best option to like a nut butter would be a sun butter option. Otherwise, you can still like all your carbohydrates are still available. So like fruit is still a great option between. I'm trying to think. A lot of those products that we talked about, like the Stinger waffles, all of those should be nut free. So definitely between wouldn't be an option. I guess it would be more of like a protein, right? They'd be kind of limited on their protein sources. Something like a protein powder might be an option depending on what they have access to. Trying to think, you could do like turkey roll-ups, you could do cheese. Cottage cheese is a great option. Cottage cheese is actually complete protein. It has all of your amino acids in it that you need. So that's awesome. Fun fact. But yeah, I think sun butter is like the best option in terms of like adding it to a PB&J. You just use sun butter instead of peanut butter. Otherwise, your carbohydrate choices, fruit, bread, all of that should be okay.
And then also for college athletes that are vegetarians, again, keep in mind that they're eating out of dining halls, and it's not sometimes the most awesome options. But what are some maybe vegetarian options for them?
Yeah. Quinoa, people think it's just a grain, but it actually is a really high source of protein. So quinoa is a great option. Edamame, once again, not just a vegetable, high protein, high fiber, and a complex carbohydrate. Beans, I cannot like get some canned black beans and just rinse them off and put them on salads or put them on your burrito bowl, but you like utilize beans if that sounds good to you. Tofu, once again, I know dining hall tofu can be a little bit iffy, but they have gotten better. So that can be an option. Let's see. Vegetarian, if you're open to eggs, once again, eggs are what we call a complete source of protein. So they have all your essential amino acids. And so if you're a vegetarian and you do eat eggs, that's a really great affordable option. I'm trying to think what else. Nut butters, some butters, edamame, quinoa, yeah, beans. those are probably the three easiest ones in terms of like cost analysis as well as ease of access. And they all come frozen as well. So if you don't find them at the dining hall, you can get some frozen ones and put them in like a microwave, and that's an easy way too. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
No, I think it was fantastic. Again, especially the injuries wise too. One more coming in. Does chocolate milk need to be cow's milk, or can it be almond or goat milk, or do they have the same benefits?
Good question. So it'll be different. So especially like a chocolate cow's milk compared to an almond milk almond milk has almost no protein in it. It's like 1 or 2 grams compared to a cow's milk has 8 grams. So your protein is going to be different dependent on what kind of milk you drink. One of my favorites, if anybody that I've worked with is on the call, they're going to be sick of hearing about it, but Fairlife milk is one of my favorites. It's an ultra processed. It is a cow's milk, but it's ultra processed. So it actually has like twice as much protein as normal cow's milk, and it's delicious. And it's only like 20 cents more expensive than a regular milk, like a non-ultra processed milk. So that's a great way to, without having to change like what you're drinking, but you can get some more protein that way. So that's a good brand to check out. But otherwise, yes, almond milk does not have much protein. If you don't drink like cow's milk, soy milk would be your next best option in terms of protein content.
What was the name of your super milk that you were just talking about? What was the name of that?
Fairlife, Fairlife. Fairlife.
Okay.
And they also have a great core power. It's essentially a protein drink, but it's essentially ultra processed milk, but it's called Core Power, and it comes in like little to go bottles. So if you're someone who like thinks they need a protein drink, or that's also a great like quick after practice fuel, that's a great option in terms of its ingredients without having to get an actual supplement.
That's awesome. And same, Bill, feel free to type in any last couple questions. And I know after this too, we will send out all these slides and all this information that we spoke about tonight. And then feel free to follow up with Brooke or follow up myself, and I can forward it on with any questions that you should have asked. I know after we do these presentations, after I talk or after I listen, I'm always like, oh, I should have said this, I should have asked that. So we can definitely follow up with you as well if you have any questions that you should have asked tonight. So feel free. But no, I think that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Brooke. I mean, I have a page of notes right here that I was taking down too. So I mean, yeah, I'm excited too, especially the Iron Cowboy that you're talking about, going 100 ultra marathons. Is that what you said? Or
100 Ironman. Like I've done 2, and I thought that was awesome. He literally does 1 a day, and it takes him like he does it faster than I did 1, and he does his 100 in. It's crazy.
I can't imagine what his body's going to feel like at like 98, 99, and like 100. You're just going to be beat up by that time.
Well, he's been saying like even like he's already had some major injuries that his recovery team has had to literally like bandage him up and get him back out on the course. He's a beast. He's like one of the toughest mental guys too. So he has a great story if anybody wants to check it out. He has a whole line of products and all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah, talk about mental fortitude and mental toughness, dude. That's impressive.
Yeah.
But no, awesome. Thank you very much. Again, if you guys think of some more questions, later on tonight or tomorrow that you should have, you say you should have brought it up today, please let us know. Reach out to Brooke, reach out to myself. Her contact information is right here on the screen. Go ahead and jot that down. Again, Brooke is fantastic at what she does. She's an excellent current endurance athlete, so she gets it. And that's why we wanted to really partner with her and really get her information to our T3 family. It's fantastic to see her working in a one-on-one setting with our athletes and then go out to our teams. She's given lunch and learns or these type talks with teams that we have too. So the more information we can get, the better we can make our athletes, and the better everyone is. It's fantastic. So thank you very much for coming out, man. We really appreciate everything.
Yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. Good to see so many people. Thank you.
Cool. Again, you guys have a fantastic night. We'll send out all this information and this is fun. Bye. We'll see you guys.
Bye, everybody.